Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Macabre Matinee with
Woo!
Sean Craig.
Hey, hey.
Uh, yeah, man, it's been forever, but we decided to do a fun little thing, didn't
Yes, we did. I had unfortunately requested a long time off that actually went longer than I ever intended, but a little rest, a little return, and we are returning with a hell of a new video.
we? Yeah, so this may be broken down into a couple of parts. We're going to see how quickly this goes, but what we have done for everybody out there, we have, I guess, five of our fans?
Right,
Um,
all five of you.
yeah, we have broken down what we have kind of determined to be the top 40-ish or so movies of every year or era. And we're going to start in 1980. I don't know how quickly these videos will come out because it takes a while to watch 40 videos.
Right.
So, um, having said that, I think we're going to just jump right in. We started with 1980.
Yeah,
Um,
the best year.
yeah,
I kicked it
It,
off.
it you know it really is kind of the start of modern horror, maybe 1978, but 1980 is kind of that modern era horror that we all love, and you know every era is kind of famous for its own thing, but this one
I feel like
this
the
year,
sorry to cut it. Yeah, I was just saying. I feel like the '80s in your average horror fan, because of course you got the deep cutters like us, but like
right?
a lot of people think like the golden age of horror for a lot of folks, your average movie watcher, they think the 1980s. So 1980 is definitely a good starting point, and we'll see where we go from here.
Because we're going to kind of jump around after this, but wherever the dice tell us where to
Yeah,
go. So.
exactly.
Let's just jump right in. What do you think, Sean?
Right on. Let's get this going.
All right, we're going to go right down the list. The first movie is The Shining. Um, the IMDb notes on this are: a family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father into violence while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future. I would say that's a pretty decent
Yeah.
um,
Oh, for sure. And
breakdown of the movie. If you don't know what this movie is,
why are you here?
yeah, yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah.
this is probably the quintessential um, haunting movie of all time.
Oh, absolutely. It's an absolute classic from Jack Nicholson's descent into madness to iconic scenes like, the red rum, the elevator full of blood. I mean, can't praise it enough. Granted, Stephen King, the writer, didn't exactly like this adaptation, but it's a classic for a reason and is well deserved.
What's he know? Um, you can find this on Paramount right now. I own it on Vudu as well. I'm sure it's in many other places that you can find it. Um, Stanley Kubrick, of course, directed it. Uh, the grade on this is an 8.4 on IMDb. I gave it an A, of course. It's
Absolutely.
absolutely one of my favorite horror films of all time.
Oh, agreed. It's an A for me as well. Definitely recommend
Okay.
it.
Uh, Moving on along. Next movie on here is Friday the 13th, the original Friday the 13th. Uh, this movie, of course, is one of Sean's all-time favorites and mine as well.
Yes.
Um, the notes here, it kind of cracks me up reading these notes
Oh,
because
sure.
the synopsis is because it's just kind of funny on some of them. But a
Right.
group of camp counselors trying to reopen a summer camp called Crystal Lake, which has a grim past, are stalked by a mysterious killer. I would say that's fairly accurate.
And it could almost summarize the entire franchise. But
Yes, yes, it could.
yeah,
Maybe not the one where they go to Manhattan
no,
or
no,
yeah,
that's fair. It was a boat and then a city on that one.
yeah.
But this one, yeah, started a franchise, iconic in every way. Absolute classic. If you want to hear a much deeper breakdown into it, check out literally the first episode of Macabre Matinee on this very channel.
There you have it.
But
Um, Yeah, go ahead.
I was just say absolute. Give it an A, A+. Watch it.
Yeah.
Still, one of the highlights of me showing a friend this was our buddy Leland had never heard the spoiler of the ending, so he was like seeing him legit surprised was great.
Well, the funny thing on this movie, on IMDb, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got a high grade,
Sure.
but out of what I consider to be our higher ranked movies, it's not all that high. It came up with a 6.4,
Yeah,
um,
and
which is a higher grade for horror movies, but still.
for sure. And honestly, like when comparing it to the franchise, I don't remember where we ranked it. Again, you can go check out our videos. Like I don't think I feel like it was at least in the top 4 or 5. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's but still as just a standalone horror movie, I think it's really well paced. For as independent and low budget as it was shot, it looks great to this day, and some really good performances, especially from the final two. We'll put it like that, without giving away anything. In case someone listening hasn't watched Friday the 13th Part One.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure again why you're listening to this show, but
We'll
um
get to some movies that why you are actually here.
yeah, exactly. So I of course gave this movie an A to start of a franchise, one of the best horror franchises around. So
Yes, sir.
um okay, moving on down our list, and we are blowing through these quickly,
And
by the way. These are not deep talk um
so fast I
uh,
forgot to set up the
reviews.
posters. My apologies. I'm on it now though.
Okay. Yeah, these are not fast these are not deep ratings. These
Yeah,
are going to be roll through them, give quick thoughts, and move on, or else we'll never get through these lists.
absolutely.
The next one on our list is just an absolute gem from the 80s. This is The Changeling. Um, the note on it here, the synopsis is: after the death of his wife and daughter in a car crash, a music professor staying in a long vacant Seattle mansion is dragged into a decades old mystery by an inexplicable presence in the mansion's attic. This stars George C. Scott, who is absolutely amazing in this movie. Um, this is up there as far as some of the best haunting movies you'll ever see,
Right
in
on.
my opinion. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
it
I
was rated a 7.2. What's your thoughts?
and again, unfortunately, when we before we even decided to make this a video, we just kind of started watching these. So some of
Yeah.
them, are a little looser in my memory, and I had to kind of go back with my ratings. I
Yeah.
mean, my notes. I remember it being very good atmosphere, and of course, George C. Scott in the lead, being well acted. When I after watching it, I gave it a B. So there may have
Yeah.
been if I whatever dropped it from A, as you sound like you're giving it an A, is one of your favorites. I wish I could tell you why, but yeah, I had a B.
Well, so I mean, in fairness, when we were doing this and going through these, you're kind of grading on a scale at the time that you're doing it
Sure.
because it's probably not up there for with The Shining for you. That could very easily be why.
Oh, of course,
And
of
it
course.
and it's graded actually a point lower on IMDb for whatever that's worth. I did in fact give it an A. It's not as good as The Shining.
Right, right.
Don't go into it thinking that, but it mostly it's a B movie, but with George C. Scott's acting put it over the top for me.
No, absolutely fair.
The next one on our list here is a classic, another haunting movie um, called The Fog by John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And this is an unearthly fog rolls into a small coastal town exactly 100 years after a ship mysteriously sank off in its waters. So, yeah, this stars Jamie Lee Curtis, who was really just getting her big, getting her career going. 1978, of course, launched her as one of the Scream Queens with Halloween, and she returned into John Carpenter's fold for this movie.
Right.
Uh, yeah, this is a solid movie. Some of the effects don't quite hold up anymore, but still a good haunting movie.
Yeah, I agree. Like stellar cast, and of course, it's John Carpenter. Maybe not one of the like your go-to when you think of John Carpenter films. Kind of underrated, but I think some of the dated effects bring it down a little bit by like modern standards. Kind of rewatching it, but it's one I've always enjoyed when I've seen it.
Yeah, same. It also has the unique, um, I guess, whatever. It's got Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis's mom in it. So, um,
Oh, yeah, as well as Adrian Barbeau. So I mean, like I said, it's got a great cast.
it absolutely does, and it's well acted and well played out. Yeah, I've always enjoyed this movie. As Sean said, some of the effects are a little wanky compared to modern times, but at the time they came out, they certainly were not. So,
Yep.
um, what did you rate it, Sean?
I give it a B, because like
Yeah,
some of it may not always hold up, but it's still an enjoyable movie to watch.
that's fair. I give it a B as well. Not up there quite with the other ones, but still a good movie. Uh,
Absolutely.
so, and I don't know if I gave the grade, but that was a 6.8 on
Yeah.
IMDb scale.
Yeah,
So,
and they go out of 10, so not a bad rating
yeah,
for them.
yeah, yeah. Moving on. To our also you can watch that movie on Prime, Maniac. I mean The Fog. I'm trying to give everybody where they can watch it.
Oh, right, right.
Next movie I just gave away is Maniac, a slasher movie from the 1980 lexicon here, and it literally is a psychopath man goes on a killing and mutilation spree in New York City. That is the description of it, and that is exactly what happens. Um, this is available on AMC Plus, Prime, Tubi, so you can get it for free if you don't have access to those other ones. And it's on Vudu free as well.
Right on.
Uh, Pretty decent slasher flick. Nothing super like sets it apart from other slasher flicks in my opinion, but a solid entry into the slasher
Yeah,
genre.
yeah, I remember it being like having a kind of a real creepy atmosphere with the stalker going out there, and as far as a slasher, what you want out of it sometimes, even if maybe not the most stellar of acting is, are the kills, worth it. I remember it being having some good kills in there, so yeah,
It absolutely did. Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
gave it a B.
same,
Um,
same. It's a
yeah,
B for me as well.
yeah. 6.4 on the IMDb scale. I keep saying IMD instead of IMDb.
Letters, they'll flip around on you.
Yeah. The next one here is one of those weird movies that I have loved since I seen it in the movie theaters. Um, it is definitely a product of its time, but this is Fade to Black. Uh, A shy, lonely film buff embarks on a killing spree against those who browbeat and betray him, all the while stalking his idol, a Marilyn Monroe lookalike.
Oh yeah.
Um, this stars Dennis and Christopher, who you may or may not recognize from the made for TV version of It in the 80s
Ah, okay.
or early 90s, I guess. But yeah, this movie it's iconic in the fact that he dresses up as characters from movies to kill people.
Yep.
He dresses up as the mummy in one point and stalks his boss and kills him. He dresses up as a vampire and kills. Uh, I think it was a prostitute, a sex worker
Yeah.
that
Yeah. It was kind of like
that
him trying
refused
to.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, was
yeah.
trying to get some business from him, and actually it was kind of like I was enjoying the film, and I believe that's the first night he went out in character and killed someone in the movie, and kind of get her accidentally dying, but then him just completely embracing being Dracula and drinking her blood. Like, okay, this movie's gonna be a trip for sure.
Yeah, and it was. So this is one that I give it a higher grade than it deserves, to be honest. I give it an A because, and a lot of that's it. Watching, through rose-colored glasses, I'm very aware of that.
Oh sure.
So,
Well, and this
yeah.
was when we started this. This was the first time I ever seen it or even heard of this movie. So and my only note for it is called Revenge of the Film Nerd. Because
That's what it is.
I actually give it a B.
Did you?
Because I still think it's campy and cheesy at times, but I don't know, especially for the year it came out, I think it was a very unique premise, especially for a slasher type film. So I really enjoyed it.
It's also has Mickey Rourke in one of his early roles.
Oh yeah, yeah, Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to remember there was who one of the bullies was, and it was
Yep.
yeah, kind of yeah. Just I was very surprised. Actually, I didn't even recognize him. My wife did because she loved Mickey Rourke before he decided to take up boxing and have to get all that facial surgery, where he looks completely different now. But
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
recognized him instantly. But yeah, again, it's cheesy and campy. But if you're in that kind of mood, I think you might enjoy this one.
Yeah, definitely check that one out. Next one on our list is a lovely little Christmas flick. Um, it's called Christmas Evil, and this is a movie about a toy factory worker who is mentally scarred as a child upon learning that Santa Claus is not real, and he suffers a nervous breakdown after being belittled at work and embarks on a Yuletide killing spree. That pretty well describes this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
This actually isn't bad. Is a slasher type film that takes place from the killer's perspective a lot of times.
right.
Um, this is available on AMC Plus, and Tubi and Vudu Free. So um, this, this isn't a bad movie. In my opinion, it's a little bit underrated on IMDb. It comes in at a 5.5.
Right. About middle of the
What did
road.
you have on this one, Sean?
Honestly, I gave it a B. I remember kind of enjoying the lead, the killer, and I don't know, as someone who works in retail most of our life, even though Granny's works at a factory, but the feeling of being belittled and worthless in your job, I kind of pull at the old heartstrings. That and just
Yeah.
I don't know, having the naughty list and him, although granted, creepily watching the kids in the neighborhood keep a naughty and nice list and like punishing said kids for it. Yeah, it's very. What's more than '80s going like, we ain't afraid to fuck up some kids too, and nice '80s horror. So
Right.
I give it a B.
Yeah. Yeah, I gave it a B as well. Like I said, I feel like it's a little underrated on IMDb, but that could be me as well. So next movie, moving right along, we're actually blowing through these pretty quickly.
Yeah, we are. We're
Um,
doing good.
yeah, the next one is Motel Hell, which is another one from my childhood that it's kind of sad to say that, right? These are all movies from my childhood. Uh,
Hey, I mean,
this is
some people were able to grow up watching horror. Some like us, like myself, we could not. So
uh, well, this one I remember watching as a kid, and of course, kind of, it was fun to go back and watch. But this is Motel Hell. This is the synopsis on it is a seemingly friendly farmer and his sister kidnap unsuspecting travelers and bury them alive, using them to create the special meat they are famous for. Um, I don't know that that quite does it justice. They turn these people into sausage and serve
they
them at
do.
their motel. Um, so there's that. It was rated to 6.0. What were your thoughts on this one?
This one kind of came out of nowhere for me. It's another one that I had not heard of or ever seen before starting this whole marathon. And I was kind of noticing like it's trying to be a dark comedy, but it's actually just kind of brutal and disturbing. And I noticed even on like the posters and the marketing tried to kind of push a sillier aspect to it. But from what I remember, like yeah, there's some dark humor in it, but it's just people being buried up to their necks with their throats slashed. Just like it's a good horror film.
Yeah, it really is. Definitely worth the watch. I gave it a B.
Same, same.
Yeah. Eventually, we will get past the A's and B's. I promise you guys. Next one on our list is it is Humanoids from the Deep.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
yeah. This one is available on AMC Plus, Screenbox, Plex Free, and Vudu Free. Um, the synopsis is a humanoid sea creatures start killing a fishing town's residents and raping their women. It's up to the townsfolk and a visiting biologist to fight back and fend them off. Yeah, this movie has a lot of fringe moments in it because of the rape
Oh, for sure.
aspect of it. It does star Vic Morrow, who later dies during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie.
Oh, right, right.
Um, but yeah, this is a yeah, it's a movie. We'll put that out there.
Well, and
Um,
well,
I'm
I'll
saying that
allude.
I actually like the movie. It's just got cringe moments.
Oh no, no, for sure. Product of its time and product of its producer. I was just going to give a little factoid in there. Uh, the director. Trying to see who the director was real quick, but
Barbara Peters and Jimmy Murakami.
yes, they made a completely different movie than what you'll actually see on screen because this is produced by Roger Corman. And
There you go.
if that name means anything to you, you know where I'm going with this. He saw their cut and was like, "Nope, more nudity, more rape, more violence," to the point where they actually took their name. The directors took their names off the movie for most of the promotions. I think they're still on the end credits, but that's it. Uh,
Yeah.
so depending on where you are with this kind of like sleaze and cheese from Roger Corman, I'll like me honestly, I rather enjoyed the movie for what it was.
I agree. Like I said, it has its cringe moments, but um, it pays off in the end. I feel like it's. I enjoyed it. It's rated 5.7. I gave it a B as well.
Yeah. My only note for it, besides what I just told him, my note was called Roger Corman's The Shape of Water. Um,
Yeah, a little bit.
I give it a B, but I'm gonna say my general viewers will probably look at it more as a C. But
Yeah.
again, it has some of the cheesy elements I don't mind from this era of movies, especially from Roger Corman films. So I gave it a B as well.
The tagline on this movie is "They're not human, but they hunt human women, not for killing, for mating." So that tells you pretty much all you need to know about this.
The Shape of Water. That's all. I'm sorry. I had to use that joke.
It kind of is. Or Creature from the Black Lagoon, maybe updated.
Right, right.
Okay, so the next movie, speaking of cheese, on our
Ooh.
list, stars Vincent Price, and this is called The Monster Club. Now, this movie either came out in 1980 or 1981, depending on the sources
Right.
that you use to find it, which is the case with a lot of these. So please don't add us and go, well, technically, this movie was from 1979. We
We
understand that, but their different sources have different years on them. So
so
we
we
did the best we could.
yeah we know nerds. We know. Okay. It's all right.
So this movie, the synopsis is a writer of horror stories is invited to a monster club by a mysterious old gentleman. There, three gruesome stories are told to him. Between each story, some musicians play their songs. Um, so pretty much what happens is Vincent Price plays a um, vampire that decides to save the life instead of killing the uh, author. He decides to save his life because he liked some of his stories or found them fascinating and takes him to a club that literally is monsters. Don't get too excited because most of the monsters are monsters in masks. They did
Yeah.
not spend a lot on the effects for the monsters in the mask, but this is an anthology movie that has I want to say three different stories in it. The stories are well worth the watch, even if the campiness of the club is not your thing.
Yeah. I remember the stories being pretty decent, and yeah, and I think the in between moments with Vincent Price and the author is meant to kind of be some cheesy fun. Your mileage with that might vary from us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
Uh,
John Carradine, who is a you know a old school horror actor as well,
yeah,
plays a part in this movie. So,
right. And like honestly, like for the in between scenes, I actually think the musical performances saved them for me.
oh yeah,
Because again, looking at the crowd, you're looking at like Dollar General fucking masks and stuff on most of the actors. But yeah, but the actual story, the anthology part of the movie, most of them I remember them being pretty solid.
yeah, I enjoyed them. The it's worth a watch. I gave it a B. It's rated 5.9. It gets a B from me.
Yeah, same. And again, it's a B if you can
B.
appreciate kind of the cheese level of it. Other people, like I said, it may be very iffy for others.
Yeah, your mileage will definitely vary on this movie. Moving right along, our next movie is a quote unquote classic from the
Yeah.
from 1980. Um, a lot of people believe this movie to be an actual snuff film. It was not. It was one of the first found footage movies ever. Um, this movie is Cannibal Holocaust. It is a snuff film in that it has them killing animals on screen.
Right.
So, and really killing them. So if that's a problem for you, skip this movie completely. If not, turn your head during those moments and watch the rest of the movie. Um, the synopsis is during a rescue mission into the Amazon rainforest, a professor stumbles across lost film shot by a missing documentary crew.
Yep.
Um, and to go beyond that, they actually are trying to release this quote unquote found footage as a movie, and that's kind of the synopsis of the story. Um, I do believe that there's some truth in it that the guy, uh, I want to say the director was fined for putting this movie out in some places because they believed it was a found footage movie. They believed it to be true.
Yeah.
Um,
If I'm not mistaken, the stories were between that as well as them kind of going the extra mile and actually having the cast members like stay out of the public eye because they really did
yeah.
try to sell it as found footage, and especially for 1980, that kind of stuff was not the norm like it is today. So there was a lot of controversy behind it, which I think it help obviously marketing wise, brilliant strategy to get more eyes on this movie. I know it was one of those movies whispered in hushed tones in my age range well after it came out of like, yeah, this
Well,
you got to see this film.
and rightfully so that it was whispered in hushed tones. This movie is a gore fest. One thing I do appreciate about this movie versus other movies that came afterward is that yes, it is native cannibals in the area, but they're not going and hunting people for no reason. These people are all dicks to these natives and kind of
Absolutely.
get what's coming to them. I'll say that. Um, if you can consider being eaten alive a what's coming to you.
Right.
Uh, it's gruesome. It's gory. I'm sure that you've at least heard this name before. It's rated 5.8. You can find it on AMC Plus, Screambox, and Plex. Of course, all of these places we're telling you where you can find these. These are based upon when we recorded it. You know how streaming services work. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it's rated 5.8. It's somewhere in that B range for me, depending on my mood.
Yeah. For me, like again, this is one of those I seeked it out in the days of VHS tapes and stuff. Like really looking for one of these this legendary film, and I forget how old I was when I saw it, but yeah, new and unique. It was very big deal to me. Kind of looking back on it now, I mean, it's a C. It's it's
Yeah,
it's an
and
important
that's
film because it set a standard for a lot of Italian horror, especially for what we would see in inspired movies since. But
yeah,
look at it as just as it is for what it is. It's fine. If you haven't watched it, I think every horror fan should see it at some point. Again, unless real animal killing bothers you, then avoid it. But for
And
what,
it happens in like two scenes,
yeah,
so it's pretty obvious when it's going to happen. So just you can divert your attention in those
yeah,
moments
yeah.
as well.
But overall, just as a film, looking at it today and after every other movies I've seen, yeah, I give it a C, honestly.
And again, I gave it a B, but that's a lot of that's for what it did for the horror genre more so than, and also the way that the natives were not necessarily betrayed as the
Oh
villains in
yeah,
this.
compared to a lot of other Italian films that came after, much better than most.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, our next movie is another Jamie Lee Curtis movie. This time not written and directed by John Carpenter. Um, this one is Terror Train. Um, the synopsis is this: 3 years after a prank went terribly awry, the six college students responsible are targeted by a mass killer at a New Year's Eve party aboard a moving train. Um, this is available on Tubi. It gets a 5.8 rating. Um, this is one of those that I remember more fondly than probably I should. Um, it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad slasher movie. It's kind of the precursor to movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, that sort of thing.
Sure, sure.
Uh, I give it a C. Um, Mostly, uh, I probably would rate it a little bit higher than that if looking at it from nostalgia, but the reality is it's probably more of a C movie.
Yeah, I think when I first watched it, I kind of like, I think I enjoyed it more, but kind of like when getting ready for the actual record, kind of thinking back on it when I was kind of going back over the synopsis and everything. Yeah, I think a C is fair, and again, it could be a B on a different day. And of course, when we originally were watching every movie that came out in 1980 by comparison. I think I gave it a higher rating based on some of the shitty Italian films I had been watching at that point.
Not just Italian films. We took a
Yeah,
lot off of here that we're not going to
right.
torture you guys with, which is also the reason we scaled it back to 40 movies per year,
Yeah.
because we figured after you get through those first 40 or so, woo, they go down
Oh,
in
for
quality
sure.
quickly.
Another little notable thing was the train itself had a cart with with a magician actually performing tricks, and it was David Copperfield being the,
Yeah.
and apparently he did actually like keep the cast and crew as far away from the magic as possible and perform them like he would on any other stage to kind of protect the magic and the tricks and how it all works. So give him a little credit for that, but doesn't take away from it being just very middle of the road slasher.
Yeah. And again, I think a C is a fair grade for it. All right. Moving on to our next movie here. I'm not sure what to say about this one. This one is Mother's Day. It's available on AMC Plus, Tubi, or Plex. Um, Gets a 5.3 rating from IMDb. And the synopsis is two brothers kidnap and brutalize three women for the pleasure of their demented mother. Um, this is an interesting film, to say the least. Certainly not my favorite entry out of 1980, but Sean has reasons why he thinks it's higher grade.
Uh, and again, this is pure for me. Your mileage will get like much like Craig. He didn't like it as much as I do. If the name trauma means anything to you, you know what you're getting into. Director Charles Kaufman is Lloyd Kaufman's brother. Lloyd Kaufman being the creator and founder of Trauma Film, like The Toxic Avenger and Terror Firmer. Uh, Lloyd Kaufman eventually got the rights to this movie, so it is now part of Trauma, and it's everything you expect from those movies if you know them. Cheesy acting, over the top violence, sexuality, nudity, and like he said, these women are being tortured and everything in the movie, and that it makes it for a movie. If it was taking itself more seriously, I would rate lower. But much like I guess it's just the Kaufman style in general. There's a goofiness and playfulness to it, much like the other Trauma films that kind of gives lets me give it more of a pass. And I don't know. But again, that's purely me. Other people may not look at it as such, and I completely understand that.
Well, what did you end up giving it, Sean?
For me, and this is on the trauma scale, it's a B. It's not the best film out of like I've seen of that style, but I think it's actually up there. I've seen a lot worse from this company and these brothers.
I think that's fair. I gave it a C minus, which is kind of a um, cop out. I didn't quite want to give it a D, but
But I'll
and mainly it's not quite a C either. It's the it gets a bump up from being a D movie because the last 20-25 minutes of the movie are pretty decent.
Oh, absolutely. And it is one of those again, kind of like a Last House on the Left, where at least you do get a good payoff at the end. For
Yes,
all the shit that the people go through. But again, I think a C or even a D would probably be your average horror viewer's opinions movie, and it's completely fair. I just have some people like Italian zombie rape films. I have a very big soft spot for trauma, so I rate it a
well,
little high on my own personal bias.
and that's fair. I fully admit that I rate some movies higher than they should be because of my nostalgia or because of my view on who made them or who's in them.
Absolutely.
Which, speaking of which, we come to Prom Night, which is what our third entry,
Right.
starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
She was busy this
And
year.
do what?
She was very
She,
busy this year.
yeah, this was definitely the year she cemented herself in as a scream queen. What she'd started in '78, of course, with Halloween, she definitely cemented herself in this year. Um, this one also has Leslie Nielsen in it, believe it or not, from Airplane and uh, those kind of satirical movies from the '80s and '90s. Um,
Yeah, not one of his rare horror appearances, but not his only one. We'll get to that in a
yeah.
whole different year.
um, The synopsis is at a high school senior prom, a mass killer stalks four teenagers who were responsible for the accidental death of a classmate 6 years previously. Again, another kind of I know what you did last summer, revenge payback type movie. Pretty common trope in horror movies. Not a bad slasher film overall. It's on AMC Plus, Peacock, Tubi, Voodoo Free, which just kind of tells you the more they're on, they at least have some respect from people out there.
Yeah.
Um, this one's rated 5.3 on IMDb. Again, it's a decent slasher film that starts a franchise.
Oh yeah, I forgot there were sequels to this one.
Yeah, there's two or three sequels to
Oh
this
yeah.
one, plus the remake.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll go ahead and say mine so you can get mad at me. To me, it's a very this middle of the road horror film. Uh,
But
Not bad by any means, but to me, it's a C for me. Like I just didn't really do much on my end, but
yeah,
nothing atrocious or bad by any means. But no, I enjoyed some of her other work better.
I agree. It's a C.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's a middle of the road slasher film. Um, but it's not as bad as some of the stuff.
Oh no, of course. Well,
Not that
and a lot of our opinion is again, as we explained earlier, great on a bit of a curve after what we suffered through before narrowing down this list.
absolutely. Okay, that brings us to another one that I actually found to be a bit more enjoyable than I anticipated. And this is New Year's Evil. And this is synopsis is during a New Year's celebration, a Los Angeles disc jockey receives a phone call saying that when New Year's strikes in each time zone, someone will be murdered and she will be the last one. Um, having this was only available on YouTube at the time that we watched it, which is
Oh, yeah.
never really a great sign that it's going to be a great movie. But I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. Um, it's got a 4.8 rating on IMDb. Um, what were your thoughts on this one?
I remember actually being drawn into it with the
Yeah,
killer calling the DJ throughout the night, and the I don't know, like the little punk kids just trying to get out and enjoy themselves for one last night. And the kills were decent, and honestly, I thought uh, I think I gave it a bit higher than that. I think it's a B. I found myself actually really enjoying it. Kind of like what you said, a lot more than I was thinking, just based on the basic premise.
yeah, I give it a B as well, and I don't know if that's just because I wasn't expecting anything out of it. But yeah, it got a pretty decent rating from both of us, and I think a little bit underrated on IMDb.
Yeah, I think maybe people need to kind of give it another look if you haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah. Now on to another haunting movie. This one takes place on a ship and is called Death Ship. Now, I won't go so far as to say this was remade in Ghost Ship, but pretty damn close.
Right.
This is the synopsis is a mystery ghost freighter rams and sinks a modern day cruise ship whose survivors climb aboard the freighter and discover that it's a World War II Nazi torture vessel. This stars George Kennedy along with some, I mean, obviously other people, but George Kennedy's the big name in it. He's the captain on the ship on the freighter that gets sunk. He plays a complete a hole. And this isn't a bad haunting film. Again, I think the acting probably pulled this one up a little bit for me. It's available on Prime if you're interested in watching it. It gets a 4.8 on IMDb.
Ooh, low rate. Yeah, like I think I agree with you. I think if it was a worse acted film, it might be a lot lower for me. But yeah, I remember the acting being solid and ghost Nazis. What a great foil, I guess. like
Yeah, you get to see some of the torture devices the Nazis supposedly were using, which I'm sure is not true in this. I mean, they were horrible people, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure that was made up for this movie, what you saw in here. Um, but who knows? Fuck, I wasn't there. Um,
right.
anyways, you get to see some interesting takes on how evil they were, and they were evil, and I'm not sure that that means that a boat ghost that the ship would become haunted and sink other ships. But hey, that's the premise of this movie. Not a bad haunting movie though. I give it a B.
Yeah, I give it honestly. It'd be like if I wasn't really doing the minus pluses too often, but this kind of a B
Yeah,
plus or B minus for me.
yeah, that's
Like
probably fair.
I think the acting saved it overall because it was still kind of. I feel like I remember it kind of being a little slow to get going at parts, but beyond that, yeah, a solid haunting.
Well, speaking of horror films, I mean not horror films,
We have
Italian
been.
horror. Yeah, our next film is, I believe, our first into the Fulci universe here,
Oh
and
yeah.
this is City of the Living Dead. Do you say it Fulci or do you say it Fulci?
I'm sure they'll correct us either way.
Yeah,
I say Fulci
uh,
in my head.
yeah.
Fulci.
Um, this one gives credit to H.P. Lovecraft as one of the writers on it, so they obviously took enough from uh, Lovecraftian stories that they felt they had to give him
Right.
writing on it. The writing credits. So this is a reporter and a psychic race to close the gates of hell after the suicide of a clergyman caused them to open, allowing the dead to rise from their graves. Um, this is rated pretty high on IMDb. It's rated 6.2.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of that has to do with Fulci being involved with it, if I'm
Sure.
being honest.
Sure.
Um, this this movie is, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not as good as a 6.2 in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Like I think they went for something unique again with the whole like said H.P. Lovecraft twist into a zombie thing. But
Right.
overall, though, it's still from what I remember of it, a lot of like still very kind of cheaply made and just It's fine. There's far worse out there, especially from Italy. I gave it a C. It might be worth, if not the worst Fulci film you'll ever see.
Yeah, it's. I gave it a C as well. It's available on Tubi and Vudu if you're interested. If you like Fulci, you're gonna love this movie.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
and I do like Fulci, but this was not one of his better entries, in my opinion. So,
All right.
uh, moving right along, our next one here is Virus or Hell of the Living Dead, depending on when they changed the movie title or when you happen to be viewing it.
Yeah.
Um, this is another Italian horror film. Um, this one is directed by Bruno Mattei and Claudio Ferguso. I don't know. Um, After an experiment gone wrong, a virus that turns people into zombies spreads throughout New Guinea. A female reporter and her cameraman and a team of four commandos sent to investigate try to survive the onslaught. Um, Remember when we talked about sexism and racism and all of that in Italian horror films? Yeah, this is one of those. Um, it it's not objectively a bad film, but it's certainly not objectively a good film in my opinion.
Well, I have something embarrassing to say right now. As I'm looking at the poster and your description, we watched different virus movies.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because
Okay.
and this happens from these damn title changes like this. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's known.
Yeah.
I watched an American edited down Japanese film called Virus.
Well, how was that movie?
Yeah, that's what I thought we were talking about. uh, yeah, a virus wipes out the majority of the Earth, and people just try to survive and find a cure. We're doing a double review real quick.
Yeah, that's
Apparently,
great.
they cut out almost all the Japanese storyline for the American version, not just being nice like in Godzilla, where they just cut in an American into scenes. I mean, including the great Sonny Chiba apparently had a part in the original Japanese version. And yeah, it's boring as hell and not good.
And mine was actually a decent zombie flick, decent Italian zombie flick. It gets brought down a little bit because of the racism and so forth in it.
Sure, sure.
Um, I give it a C, which it's rated 4.9. I figure that's pretty fair. I have no idea what Sean's rated because again, we watched
Yeah,
different
and
movies.
I'm not sure
So.
if again, I may have watched it under a different title, but I don't remember right now. So we're just gonna move along.
So the next one is our first entry into Jaws ripoff movies.
Yeah.
And this one is called Alligator. Um, this is a movie that I watched when I was a kid, and it was kind of one of those, oh, could this really happen type things, that everybody talked about. But a pet baby alligator is flushed down a toilet and survives in the city sewers. 12 years later, it grows to an enormous size thanks to a diet of discarded laboratory dogs injected with growth hormones. I don't think it ever goes into that in the movie.
I don't
Uh,
remember that at all.
in fact, humans have entered the menu. I will say this about this movie. I'm still trying to figure out how this alligator got from somewhere in the Midwest to Manhattan in the sewers.
That's how
Um,
sewers work, man. They're a magical place full of Ninja Turtles and sludge that'll turn a killer into a child. Well,
so this is available on AMC Plus. It gets a pretty high rating in my opinion, a 6.1. Um,
yeah,
I gave it a C, and most of that's out of nostalgia. Um, it probably, in my opinion, is more deserving of a D.
oh,
But hey, I'm going to leave it a C because that's where I put it when I was a kid.
sure. And honestly, I'm not as critical of it. It's a C. Don't get it wrong. But no, I don't think it's a D. I think it is very for a Jaws
Okay.
ripoff. I found some. I rather enjoyed it. An extra bonus for me was when I was kind of looking into it after watching, like I normally do, and found out. I guess I'm assuming working the body. Maybe it wasn't fully animatronic. They had to have some kind of puppeteering in the suit. Kane Hodder of Friday the 13th fame actually was the alligator for when they needed a man in the suit crawling around, I guess.
That's hilarious, and I'm not even going to complain about it. Okay, so
And the final
our
film.
last movie on our first episode of 1980 is a little fun thriller called House on the Edge of the Park.
Oh boy.
And yeah, this is two low-life punks invite themselves to a party at a posh villa, and after being taunted by their snobbish host, hold everyone hostage and subject them to various forms of torture and mayhem. Uh, Probably most notable in this movie is having David Hess in it, who had just kind of risen to popularity in horror films because of his role in Last House on the Left.
I mean, yeah, the
Uh,
poster I found for it, the put up on the slide as the viewers are seeing, that's literally on the top of the poster, pointing out he was in that.
uh, Overall, it's not a bad movie. It's kind of a um, torture, hold them hostage kind of movie. It's nothing too fantastic, nothing too new, nothing you haven't seen before. Um, it's only available on YouTube if you choose to watch it. It's definitely worth the viewing, in my opinion, but don't expect too much out of it. 5.7 is what it's rated on IMDb, and I'm kind of right there along with that with a solid C on it.
Yeah. For me, just because it was, I don't know, maybe it constantly reminding me of Last House on the Left, which is a story of horrible things, but to me a little better done. And
Yeah.
it's a D for me. Again, I think it's pretty on the low end of revenge horror. But I'm not to say if you're just into that genre and want to check out more, it's worth a watch. It ain't the worst thing you'll
It
ever see, but
does have a twist at the end that makes almost no sense to the movie.
right.
But it does have a twist at the end, so just be prepared for that. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, at least the bad guy get. I don't want to give too much
Sure.
away for
Again,
a
yeah,
movie that's 40 years old.
yeah. Let's see into the just so you know what you're getting into, but still worth a watch.
Well, that's going to wrap up the first episode of 1980 horror films with Macabre Matinee. And as I said earlier, I am Sean. I'm Sean.
You are
I am
not.
Craig,
and
and that is
as a,
Sean.
and I am Sean, and thank y'all for tuning in. Stay tuned for part two coming out eventually. Latest.